Dropping in the middle of August because we've got nothing else to talk about. Oh boy, Mason McTavish, folks. The trade discussions are not going away. Because leave it to Ryan Dixon on Sportsnet.ca, who recently published another article talking about this Mason McTavish trade conundrum. And, lo and behold, possible trade destinations for Ducks Mason McTavish, 3 of my favorite teams, are included on the list. So yeah, it's feeding grounds for content here, my friends. Let's dive into Mason McTavish one more time and the entire situation bestowed upon him. 22-year-old forward at the time of recording this audio, he still does not have a contract, but in the most recent season, he had 52 points in 76 games played. A career high, he's been pretty good, he's got that dog in him, he's an aggressive forechecker, he's a wrecking ball, he's got skill, he can score points, he can do it all. And Mason McTavish, as a cerebral tactician, a heavy shooter, puck handler, is a very valuable piece of the Anaheim Ducks' future. It's just with Leo Carlsson, Strome, and Granlund all up in there at center, you don't necessarily know if McTavish has a center spot next season, and with some of their other shiny new toys, doesn't really look like his spot is guaranteed on the wings either. Kreider, Gauthier, there are a bunch of dudes who are going to be making an impact with this team. And so we dive into Ryan Dixon's proposals and ideas in regards to McTavish. No wonder we're speculating about the future of this player when, at least for now, there's probably not that much to talk about. McTavish, of course, is an RFA, and at this point in the offseason, that fact alone is enough to generate at least a ripple or two in the rumor mill, especially when the NHL transaction waters are so disturbingly still in the dead of summer. It's worth noting that there's a bit of precedent for drawn-out negotiations in Anaheim between high draft picks like McTavish, the 3rd overall selection in 2021, and GM Pat Verbeek. In the summer of 2023, both Drysdale and Zegras were unsigned RFAs heading into October before putting pen to paper with the club on 3-year deals just before the year got going. You could also talk about the Ducks and the forward spots that they have and whether or not McTavish's spot is guaranteed. Scrape all these things together and you can understand why there's at least some talk of McTavish moving. What really drives the discussion is the fact that he is precisely the kind of player a large number of teams would love to get their mitts on if the situation went from simmer to boil. Simmer, that's an interesting way to describe it. Which teams would make the best fits? We're glad you asked. Let's dive into Detroit, we'll dive into Vancouver, and we'll also dive into Montreal over here. Let's read the Detroit Red Wings write-up. There is a blatant connection here. Given how Pat Verbeek worked under Detroit boss Steve Yzerman for years, both in the Motor City and before that with the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Red Wings are looking to push forward as they attempt to end a playoff drought that's creeping up to 10 years. Casper had a strong 19-goal rookie season, but you could definitely see Detroit wanting to beef up down the middle behind Dylan Larkin. By all rights, you'd expect Anaheim to be targeting a return that helps the club right now, as the Ducks try to move up into the Western Conference playoffs under first-year Anaheim coach Joel Quenneville. Still, Anaheim might think long and hard about a piece like Axel Sandin Pellikka, if the Wings were willing to deal him. No, they wouldn't be. I'll just go out there and say that at the beginning here. Axel Sandin Pellikka is probably a no-go. Not because he's a franchise generational talent, but because there's literally nobody else on the right side long-term that is projecting to be good other than Moritz Seider. So Axel Sandin Pellikka is kind of a premium in Detroit. Nevertheless, the article says that this 17th overall pick from 2023 might be ready to push for an NHL job following 2 strong years in Sweden's top league. He's not big, but ASP comes in the coveted right shot package, which offers a nice counterbalance to the lefties, because Anaheim already has Jackson Lacombe, Pavel Mintyukov, and Olin Zellweger. So, not a surprise here that the conversation still talks about Axel Sandin Pellikka, considering the fact that he is a very notable name. McTavish for ASP, I honestly do think from a value-to-value perspective it's reasonable, but for Detroit, they have such a hole on their right side. They need defense. Marco Kasper can probably be okay at second-line center. Is the upgrade from Kasper to McTavish really that big that you would need to give up on an Axel Sandin-Pellikka? I don't know. Let's go over into the Vancouver Canucks discussion because Dixon does write about the Canucks too. A relatively short time ago, it felt like the Vancouver Canucks were set down the middle with a duo of Pettersson and Miller. Add Bo Horvat into the mix and you have a big trio as well. Today, Miller plays for the Rangers and Pettersson is coming off of as disappointing of a showing as you can imagine for someone in the first year of an $11.6 million cap hit contract. Maybe a strong second-line center could help all involved. It's very easy to see why Vancouver would have a serious interest in McTavish, given the Canucks have Chytil, acquired from New York in the Miller trade, slotted as their number 2. If Vancouver could get Pettersson back on track, slide McTavish in as the second-line center, and bump Chytil down to the third line, it would really have something cooking. The Canucks do not have a ton of cap room to play with. After all, you have to assume any trade for McTavish would also be seeing him sign an extension to a sizable long-term deal. But there are certainly pieces the Canucks could ship out in a punch if they had to make some room. So yeah, the article doesn't dive into what those pieces could be, but it does say that McTavish would help out the Canucks, which I don't disagree with. Pettersson and McTavish, if everybody plays to their best capacity, oh boy, there's a lot of potential there. Even with Chytil too. Like, I don't know how confident I am in him being a full-time second-line center for 82 games, but having him as a third-line center I think is very reasonable. It's fine, and he's a guy who plays with a lot of pace. He could be working to get more minutes too. Maybe you don't even go first, second, third line. Maybe you go first line to A line to B line, especially if you've got some goal-scoring support like Höglander and Sherwood on that third line as well. There can be some good forward depth if a guy like McTavish comes in and makes his home in Vancouver. But let's scroll down and read about the Montreal Canadiens. This is what Dixon writes about in the article. Off-season talk around the Habs tends to focus on two things: how great the deal for Noah Dobson was, and how they still have a massive hole at 2C. Yeah, I will die on that hill and say that it's been fun, even though this is pretty accurate as to how Canadiens' off-season discourse has gone. Here's how good Noah Dobson is, and here's another trade candidate for second-line center. Even after acquiring Dobson, the Canadiens still have the powder to get a McTavish deal done if they were really motivated. The problem is that powder might be 2023 5th overall pick David Reinbacher. Again, the Ducks appear set long-term on the left side of the blue line, but like many teams, they could use a right-shot guy who projects to play in the top 4 for the next decade. Despite sustaining a severe knee injury during the preseason last September, Reinbacher remains a highly regarded D-man who has size and smarts. He could be NHL ready by October. Would the Canadiens part with a potential top 4 piece like that if it meant filling that gap behind Nick Suzuki? Good questions. Very little answers, but I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the idea of either the Canucks, the Wings, or the Canadiens trading for Mason McTavish? I mean, if you're going to go right-handed defenseman prospect as a potential return, I feel like for Vancouver you could easily pencil in Tom Willander in that respect. I don't really think that that's a bad deal, especially if it's McTavish coming back. You'd have to give up some salary too, so maybe somebody expensive like an Evander Kane or something. But honestly, I think Evander Kane's going to be a very beloved Canuck. Just give it a few weeks here. Once he stands up for Elias Pettersson, Canucks fan base's minds are going to switch. But still, Tom Willander, some extra salary going back the other way. I do think that's fine for Mason McTavish. I like this player a lot. Him coming over to Vancouver would be a really good addition down the middle. For Montreal and David Reinbacher, I'd say that even though Reinbacher kind of fills the same role in the Canadiens prospect pool that Axel Sandin-Pellikka does, there still are a number of other good right-handed defenseman options the Canadiens have, like Bogdan Konyushkov, for example. But Mason McTavish is a very good player, so I would honestly consider it if that were the case. And then for Detroit, Axel Sandin-Pellikka, his name has been brought up a ton. I'm not too comfortable with that, to be honest, but you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about each of these trade ideas for the Anaheim Ducks' 3rd overall pick of yesteryear? Thoughts in the comment section below about a potential McTavish trade. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.